and not the chatting function when you want to get a hold of NJ. So please use the raised hand function. And it's a beautiful night tonight, so thank you all for coming, spending the night flowers here in the city. Well, let's start with the approval of the agenda. I'll accept a motion to approve the agenda tonight.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thanks, Brian. Any discussion? Motion carries. And then on the minutes, if you want to look at the minutes, there's actually quite a few minutes. So is there any discussion on the minutes or typos or anything we want to address? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes from the April 26, 2022 meeting.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions. Motion carries. All right, Lori, would you want to comment here?
Yeah, thank you, everyone. You may recall from the last time we met, there was an announcement. I actually was not planning to be here tonight. However, I'm here, so I'm staying. Thank you. I got a very nice counteroffer from the city, and I appreciate staying. I wanted to be part of this project, so it's all good. And you'll see Chair Kessie's going to bring up the next item, which is a vote to reinstate the next two meetings that we had already basically planned for. So I've already spoke with our consultant team. These next two meetings still work for them. They're reserved on their calendars. So I feel like we can go ahead with these next two if the committee votes to reinstate those.
Awesome. Thank you, Lori. Thank you for staying too.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
For the commitment. Awesome. Is there any discussion about the restating the next two meetings? All right, I'll accept a motion to vote to restate the May 31st, 2022 and the July 19th, 2022 meeting dates.
I'll second.
First and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Lori and NJ, any public comment?
No public comment submitted.
Awesome, thank you. And then new business. I think here I turn it over to Anise.
Sure.
Awesome, thanks.
Okay. Thank you all for having us. I know you met just, what is it, maybe a couple of weeks ago now, right before the annual town meeting. So my apologies. This meeting will probably be a lot more high level than your last meeting was. I know you guys got into a lot of the data and the details from the housing needs analysis. So a little bit of a different hat tonight. But
Nancy, do you want to come up and sit in the nice, comfortable black chairs?
see all of us?
No, Nancy, we want you to.
Come on up. Come on up.
That's on the dais.
Yeah.
I was gonna sit next to me, Lori, but that's, oh, whatever.
Move from here.
They always put somebody next to you to make sure
Ah.
I behave.
Great.
All right, they're more comfortable.
So.
They're more comfortable.
Just make the sound he responds.
Thank you, Anise.
Great.
Go ahead and carry on.
Perfect. We're all facing one direction now. So this evening, we wanted to give you just a quick update on some of the engagement and the outreach events and activities that we've been undertaking since I was last here in this room with you, and also a short report back on the annual town meeting. And some of you may even have been there, and you can kind of give us your impressions. And then essentially, you know, the focus of this meeting is to undertake a SWOT analysis, so a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats discussion. I will be flip charting the discussion, but it will be primarily less me talking and more hearing from all of you. So Let's see, quick short-term schedule here. I think we are still on track. It looks like you do have another meeting on the 31st to once again continue discussing the HNA. Our plan is to be back with you mid to end of July, July 19th so far, to bring back some more fleshed out themes for the 50-year plan vision statement that will capture the discussion that we have here tonight, as well as the remaining responses we get through our online surveys and the remaining community conversations, of which I think a couple are still scheduled. Beth, do you have anything you would like to add regarding the short-term schedule here?
No, we'll be getting the August meeting here on the schedule and start talking about the employment land needs in August, I would imagine.
Excellent. I also meant to mention right around the time that we're going to be meeting in July to review a draft vision statement for the 50-year plan, we also have a plan to have some sort of community engagement activity or open house. We were thinking about even tacking on to the farmers market in July, because I feel like that's where we see a lot of community members come through, but we will have some sort of touch point with the community regarding the draft vision statement for the plan right around the time that we all get together at the end of July. Great, and then this is kind of the longer term schedule. Beth, do you have anything to note about the long-term schedule here?
My note about the long-term schedule is we'll be updating the short-term schedule to flesh out more of what will be going on a little later on in this year.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so a little update on what we've done since we last spoke all together, or at least when I was last here in this room in March. We have an online survey that has been up since about early March, I would say. We've also conducted a number of community conversations, and then we also designed and facilitated a workshop at the annual town meeting, which I think was a great success. I'm going to pass it on to NJ, who might just give us a quick update, at least on the community conversations piece. Just let us know, how many we've done and how many are scheduled and who we've talked to. So yeah.
Yeah, so far we've done 6 community conversations. The attendees have been roughly about 77 people that have been reached through the total of that. So timeline wise, we have through June to get these community conversations in. There's a variety of ways you can do it. People have done them at regularly scheduled board meetings. People have created special events just for the purpose of the community conversation. And people have also, gone to events that aren't necessarily all about the 50-year plan. Like we've had one submitted where people, the host of the community conversation asked people questions as they were attending the native plant sale. So there's a variety of interesting ways you can do it, and it's super flexible. All we're looking for is just getting and reaching as many people of the community as possible. If a community conversation is not realistic, again, distributing the survey is another great way to go about this. And yeah, just try and get something scheduled because time flies quick and meetings fill up fast. So in June, we'll be here before we know it. So let me know if I can be of any help with community conversations. And yep, let's keep it going.
I've done a couple, but haven't turned in my response.
That is great to know. Thank you.
Just so you know, what I did is I went to my commercial tenants and tried to start a conversation, just went door to door. I got maybe 4 surveys filled out and I turned them in over at the senior center, community center. And then a couple people said they might bring them to the town hall meeting, which I don't know if they did or didn't.
Great, Brian. Thank you. Paul?
Yeah, That's a really great question. I mean, we do our best to do as many of these community conversations as possible and also put the online survey out through all of the various communication channels that the city has. I can't attach a number. These aren't quantitative, statistically significant surveys. It's primarily qualitative outreach that really, depends on kind of the lift that we have from SAC members and staff. Yeah, all that to say, I think having 8 to 10 community conversations is really great. I mean, think about the number of folks that you reach just through those small focus groups. And yeah, I think we do our best, but I can't attach an actual number to it. Yeah, well, there's no quantitative results coming out of the visioning process. It's all qualitative. We also are relying on our SAC since they also provide a lot of expertise and depth in the community. So they are also there to help kind of, guide us and review the feedback and provide kind of more feedback on that feedback. So there is that iterative process built into the project itself. We're not ranking results. Oh, no, those aren't ranked. Sorry. Maybe I should have bulleted them. Mm-hmm.
I think the tone of the community conversations are, why did you move to Scappoose? And what would you like to see here? So definitely just gathering information from that aspect. There's no
Mhm.
number associated with it.
Yeah.
Jeff, I think you should probably go door to door then.
I think that's the purpose of trying to reach people, at the farmers market and to have a little bit more exposure.
NJ?
Yeah, and to add on to that, I think it's just an opportunity for the members of this committee to present the message that anyone can participate in this process. Your community conversation could be just sitting your family down at dinner and having a talk about what you like about Scappoose and where you want to see it go. So I think, the more we spread the web, the wider it casts. So, the more of us that are bringing these up with other people in the community, the less these things of not having enough outreach are going to be a concern.
Great. And just making it a priority, right? To try to, especially with all the people here at the SAC committee representing the agencies. I think it's a
Mhm.
great group of people representing all the leadership, most leadership groups, and not just the city, but the county. And so just getting out to the different groups that you represent, the schools, the port, the seniors, city council, economic development, library. There's a lot of diversity there. NJ?
We have a hand raised by Beth.
I just want to mention that I think when people are asking questions and the microphone isn't being passed, people online can't hear you.
And everyone just make sure your microphone's on. It'd be great. Okay. Anise, back to you.
Yeah, great. So yeah, I guess, a quick, just continue this conversation a little bit. We've had 65 responses to the online survey, so that is yet just another opportunity to continue pushing out that online survey. I know staff and the whole project team were certainly open to suggestions if you have ideas for where to continue pushing out information about the online survey, about the community conversations. There are numerous avenues of communication that the city relies on to reach folks, whether it's social media, next door, the project website, newsletters, etc. So the city's done a pretty good job of pushing all of the information out about the online survey and the community conversations through all of those methods. But if there are additional avenues that you're like, hey, there's no information, we could, send information through this avenue of communication. I'm sure we would be certainly very open to that, but yes.
Funny, I get so much information from that Ichabod sign. Maybe you could say, check the website for the survey on that Ichabod sign.
See, Lori is writing that down.
I don't know if they're open to things quite like
Hard,
that.
if we put the
Okay.
school,
Yeah.
School thing.
auction
Okay, we'll look into
Runners.
it.
on that sign.
Oh,
Road runner's
great.
pretty informative at times too.
Yeah, that's great intel. That's why we have an SAC. Excellent, thank you. Yeah, so please continue pushing out that online survey and those community conversations, et cetera. So quick annual town meeting recap. How many folks attended on Saturday, April 30th? Yes, I see a couple familiar faces. Yes, excellent. We thought it was super well attended. It was pretty exciting that it was the first annual town meeting, after COVID, and we had a really nice kind of facility for it at the school. I thought, had a really engaged group of folks that were working around the workshop activity that we had after the presentation. So I think overall we had about 40-ish or so participants that engaged in the workshop activity, which is pretty great. So for those of you who didn't attend or weren't quite sure what was going on, we had a number of round tables in the cafeteria at the school, and we had very large, kind of high quality base maps of the city of Scappoose, with city limits and the UGB limits. And then we had a variety of different colored stickers and different colored markers, and had some key questions that we were asking, and we were having folks kind of through consensus around the table or with the participants that you were with, identifying areas for various different land uses. So we had, stickers for housing and stickers for shops and retail, for employment, and then they were able to also create a legend if they had additional thoughts or they had specific details about the kind of shops or the kind of parks. They also had an opportunity to further describe what that was for them. And then the markers were also used to draw in transportation connections or sidewalk connections or transit lines. So it was really just an opportunity to use some materials, look at a map, discuss with your friends and neighbors. I saw a lot of, new and old friends come together and have some pretty interesting discussions with the maps. And yeah, I thought it went really excellent. Everyone essentially had a couple minutes at the very end to report back on some of the major themes of what the group discussed. And so essentially what we're doing with that information is we are going to digitize these maps that we received. It's always nice to have kind of a digital GIS layer, essentially, of what people draw in. We may find that we want to use that later on in the process. But really another opportunity that the workshop activity gave us was just like helping develop the language and the narrative and trying to understand what are the things that people are talking about. Because as we are developing the vision statement for this 50-year plan, we want to make sure we're using terminology and narrative that we're hearing and we're seeing through all of these different activities. So whereas the questions of the workshop were maybe a little bit more place-based than, say, the questions in the community conversations or the online survey, which are certainly a lot more high level, what we're really trying to do is build our own dictionary, our own language base for this vision statement. So that was really quite helpful. Does anybody have any kind of reflections or thoughts on if you attended on, either the annual town meeting or the workshop or anything like that?
I thought it was one of the
Nancy?
I
Nancy?
thought it was one of the most engaging events I have been to in many years.
Nice.
Great,
My hat is off to you.
great.
The engagement in the workshop was not only fun,
Yeah.
but it gave us a chance to, and I just thought it was brilliant that you said we had to connect to consensus, because it actually forced us to do more than just say, this is what I want,
Yeah,
So I really, honestly.
it was a tough ask.
It was a tough ask. In fact, it was like, well, I wonder if we're going to be able to do this. Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
And I just really applaud you. Whoever came up with this idea, you deserve a bonus.
Oh, better tell your boss.
We'll have that in the meeting notes.
Yeah.
Show your boss.
Can we make a motion?
Paul,
Strongly suggest.
On, Paul.
I don't think the mic is on. I don't think it's on.
You tap it.
There's a red light. To the light.
Is it on now?
Yes.
I echo everything you said. I think everything was fantastic, really well represented, and tons of engagement. One note I'd make toward page 6 of your annual workshop meeting notes is the one thing that's kind of ranked through with all the tables was natural resources. I mean, you have a very specific Scappoose Creek Trail, but really, I think the tone was, we have some amazing natural resources here in the city, and we should be doing our best to not only conserve them, but also to embrace them. So that's the CZ Trail, Chapman Landing, and the Veterans Scappoose Creek Corridor. So it wasn't necessarily, to me, not so specific. I mean, there obviously people were talking about Scappoose Creek Trail system, but mostly really about, hey, we've got some really amazing things that we want to make sure that we preserve. But also we could, if we put more resources or focus on them, could actually become even more important part of our town. So I thought that was great that almost every table had that same thing. So it was very well done.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for doing that.
Great. Well, thank you so much for attending. That's that's most of the work right there, honestly.
We really didn't know what to expect as far as numbers of people who would attend because, it's been 2 years.
yeah, I think for this group too, it's just a great chance for the community once a year to get together. A sense of community. We're all in this together. We're all here and live in the same area and doing it one time a year. I think just a note to everyone here that represents these different constituents, remind them word of mouth that once a year we get together. The council was well represented.
Mhm.
Their leaders were there, staff was there. It's just a good opportunity to get together as a community. So I think in the future too, just spread the word. It's always around April every year. So it's just a great opportunity.
Big kudos to staff for pulling off like the logistics of the event. Very dialed. So done.
It was on Jay and Isaac. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Any last thoughts about the annual town meeting or the summary or questions about the online survey or the community conversations? No?
I just had one note. We will have the photos of the maps and then the individual sheets like this. There's pictures of them, and those are on the city's website on the plan page for this activity.
Sorry, I forgot that there was this extra slide, but these were just kind of, I should probably bullet them so that they're not numbered, but just some of the big ideas that came from the discussion, and then a little snapshot of what the outcome looked like, those maps and that legend that folks can create.
Not to go back to the community conversations, but do we know if there's something going out in their water bills?
We have been focusing it in the newsletters, which is
bill.
yeah, in the water bill. Yeah.
In the past, we did surveys and water bills for like the swimming pool.
Mhm.
I don't know if the city wants to bother, but you'd get a lot of input if you did that.
Yeah, and I think kind of how we've been doing it is just advertising that it's online for people to do. But you're right, you get different responses with paper than you do online. Yeah. Can think about that.
Great. Okay. So as part of the packet for this evening, there is also just a little one-pager description on what a SWOT analysis is. Some of you may or may not have done this in other parts of your lives, but my hope is to kind of transition a little bit here and facilitate a conversation about the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats in Scappoose. So this is yet again just another exercise for all of us to just build our language base, identify the concepts and the ideas that align with, you know, what the city's doing really well right now, what kind of opportunities are available for the city, you know, based on your own expertise or backgrounds, and also your involvement in all sorts of community-based activities here, you know, weaknesses, threats, etc. I know also at the last SAC meeting, you certainly got kind of, you know, into a little bit more depth in terms of your housing needs analysis. So maybe thinking about what you learned from that last meeting, really kind of putting everything on the table. It can all go out there. My hope is that the SWOT analysis little descriptor was somewhat helpful for at least helping orienting ourselves to what kind of discussion we want to have and what we want to get out of this. I think the little blue matrix here is maybe particular gray if it wasn't printed in color. Is particularly helpful. It's just other ways of asking ourselves these questions. So when we'll kind of work through them together as a group one by one, and I'll just kind of start flip charting ideas. We'll start with strengths, unless anybody wants to start with something else. We do not have to go in order. And, you know, these are great questions to kind of think about. You know, what does Scappoose do well? What unique resources can the community draw on? What do other communities see as Scappoose's strengths? So anyways, I would say maybe reference this if you're kind of struggling a little bit. I'm going to move over to the flip chart here. My hope is that I can write clearly and legibly and large enough that everyone can see. Please flag me down if that's not the case. I think the trick here is to also have it visible for the folks on the online as well. So here we go. I should probably bring.
No, take it over. Maybe the chair, and then if you need it, you can grab it.
Let's do this. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
For those online, just a brief hold while we get everything set up.
You might take the PowerPoint down so that we could change our view to zoom in on Anais.
And then people in the room too, if you want any pizza, there's pizza here tonight.
Thank you.
Well, good
Yeah.
opportunity to
Great.
grab some pizza.
Is this close or far away?
Hang on just a second. We'll see how it looks.
Great. Okay. I started with strengths here, but we don't have to start here. I could do a new page.
Let's do it. Let's
Let's
go
do
with
it.
strengths.
Okay.
Go in the order that you recommend here.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I'll kind of, you know, pipe in as you see. I don't know if there needs to be any particular order, but just in terms of the questions I kind of stated a moment ago, things to think about, you know, thinking about what you learned at your last SAC meeting, what you've been, you know, hearing through your community conversations, et cetera, what you know from your own backgrounds and professions and just experience living in Scappoose and working with the city. Let's start. Like, what are some of this community's biggest strengths?
Ryan?
A good place to live.
What does that mean?
Decent schools, low crime, reasonable traffic levels compared to other parts of Portland Metro, those types of things.
Great. Please let me know as I write notes on the flip chart if it doesn't reflect, if you don't think it reflects what someone said, please let me know and I can modify.
You can say good schools.
Kim?
Yeah, hi everyone. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. I'm in Atlanta this week. But I would say the unparalleled outdoor recreation opportunity that we have through the, you know, it's biking, whether it's biking, fishing, kayaking, Heard a lot about people birding when I did the community conversation with the watershed, which was really interesting. So that's just
Wait,
really
what? I'm sorry, what was that?
Hurting?
birding.
Birding.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there's a person with a whole blog that's about birding in Scappoose, which is amazing.
I thought you said herding.
Yeah.
Herd.
birding.
Herding birds.
Herding birds, yeah.
Yep. And then I would also just echo when I thought about, what's really nice and attractive about living in Scappoose, it's just a peaceful place. It's not a stressful place to live. And I feel like a lot of communities are under stress today, and it just doesn't feel like that here, which is nice.
And I would just correct unparalleled outdoor recreation. Kim, was that more kind of what you were?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you.
I think my safe comment, it's not necessarily about crime because crime suggests punishment, but I feel like it's an actual safe. We feel like we can be in the community anytime and
Jeff, did you have something?
great library system.
Library, yeah.
Location to Portland Metro.
Location, metro, yeah.
Good location to jobs,
Yeah.
Portland, jobs, entertainment.
Location to metro, jobs, amenities.
I think that will show up on our weakness.
Yeah, so we'll see some kind of interesting cross connections between what we say here versus what we might say for some other ones. Yeah. Let's keep that in mind.
Oh,
I think people are extremely friendly and approachable. I think that a lot of the strengths are the reasons why, because there is a safety element to this town that, you're not on guard. You can be yourself and be open. So I think that's a good strength.
Mhm. Friendly, approachable.
I think I've heard a lot about the small town feel, and it's because of all the things we're talking about, but people are, sort of like Mayberry-ish that this is, which it is. I think the commute, we skirted around that, around location of Portland, that the commute is quite easy comparatively to
Yeah.
other sites.
Excellent. I'm just curious about this one small town feel. Do you want to just give me a little bit more about, why that comes to mind, or how would you describe a small town feel?
Everyone knows your name.
Everyone knows your name. No, this is great. I hear this a lot, and it's so interesting. It's so interesting to me. Great. Yeah, safety. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
lines. Oh, right.
yeah.
Come to do business at the city.
You're not waiting in lines. Right. Like that.
If you don't want to talk to someone, you don't go to Fred Meyer's at certain times of the day. So true. That's a week.
Every Sunday, the town hall's at Fred Meyer, right?
First thing in the morning.
Nope. Anything else? Yeah.
Let's do more. Oh, Pat, why don't you go?
Oh, sure. Go. Sorry.
Availability of medical services.
Availability and access, or availability of goods and services. Access. Okay. Access to medical services.
We'll go to Brian, then we'll go to NJ.
Relatively low property taxes and business-friendly environment.
Great. And then business friendly. Excellent.
Andrew?
Yeah, thank you. So on schools, I'm hopefully moving from opportunity to strength. So I don't know exactly where this fits in, but access to post-secondary education with Portland Community College's campus, I hope will become a strength. And then also thinking about that broader than just workforce training, which is our core competency at the training center, but also thinking about things like community education. We offer a bird watching class. So, the access that comes with post-secondary education. And then I know my colleague Craig is on the phone but doesn't have access to the microphone or the chat function. So also just thinking a little about the larger OMIC initiative and the opportunities that presents both with the workforce training and also the incredible technology at the research and development facility.
Yeah, that's great. I want to keep some of those concepts because I feel like there's a lot to unpack there for the opportunities conversation, because I feel like everything you just said is going to fit perfectly there. But I did hear kind of good schools, and maybe what we could say is that there is kind of like a culture of education here that maybe lends itself to the kind of opportunities you just mentioned. Can I put another check mark by the school? Good school.
And I think maybe just also higher education being here now where it wasn't previously.
Yes.
That's why they're a little different. We have
I think so.
the grade schools and the high school, and then you have the
Right.
secondary higher ed.
Right. The presence of that. Yeah. Okay.
I say a strength is we do have land for jobs, for family wage jobs,
Employment land. Yeah.
employment land within the.
Yeah. Excellent.
Jennifer?
I think the farmers market adds a real sense of community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anything else that the city does particularly well, or that other people are like, wow, Scappoose has this thing, or they've got this going on?
I would say just also just the movies in the park that Jeff has started, and the new kind of the focus on having bigger events in the city the last few years, and that's becoming more of a priority.
Yes.
Just events and
Events, yes,
Yeah.
community events.
Community events.
I would disagree with that one. I think as far as other cities, we're still so far down the rung. I think it might be an opportunity, and I think that we're pushing toward that way, but to call it a strength, I think would be a tough one right now.
Yeah, I guess I'm focusing on the fact that it didn't exist before and it does
Right, but we have
now.
to look at it and say, what are people talking about Scappoose for?
Sure.
It's not necessarily that stuff.
It's also that stuff.
Festival forever and ever and
Yeah.
ever, long before I was here. And I think that the city's effort to bring back community event, whether we call it a powwow or sauerkraut festival or I don't know, I think Adventure this year, but
Adventure Fest.
you have something that brings our
Well,
community.
don't get me wrong. I was a big part of the Centennial on the committee. I'm just saying it, calling it a strength. Like she just said, what are people talking about Scappoose about? I don't think it's that necessarily compared to other towns. I mean, Malawi's had a festival every single year for like 100 years. I mean, I'm not, and again, I'm not saying that we're not moving that way, but call it a strength might be a little bit of a push, in my opinion.
I think it's a strength. Let's keep it on our list.
Yeah, I think it's a strength.
I'd say we have stable leadership. Mayor's been here for a long time, solid city council, and it's predictable, stable leadership. Not a lot of infighting, not a lot of distractions.
it's cooperative leadership.
Cooperative.
I love these words. Eating them up. Great.
Kim?
Yeah, I would say one of the strengths are the things we probably don't notice, like a smoothly functioning infrastructure and utility system. I hear very few people complaining about things working in Scappoose. Things seem to work very well.
Or things not working. Like no one's complaining about things not working.
Which takes a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
But it's a subtle strength, but an important one. Yeah.
How would we characterize that? How should I summarize that? Public Works? Are you saying that Public Works works? Anything else? We feel like we have two pieces of paper up here.
I think the other thing maybe is the way that the city cooperates with nearby agencies as well.
Regional partnerships,
right.
interjurisdictional coordination. Yeah, yeah.
I have one more. To what extent this affects the city as a whole, I'm not sure, but we have an airport.
Yes, yes.
Not every town has that.
That's true. Great.
Last call.
Yeah. Okay. I'll move us along. Okay. Weaknesses.
Something that I heard from my community conversations and I've heard at many of my other events that I go to is I do understand where it comes from, but a lot of people say how difficult it is to get a business started, whether it be land or requirements put out by the city. It seems challenging. I've not done that kind of thing, but the thing that
Okay, so land, access to land or acquiring land
there's a lot of requirements.
for land development.
Yes.
Got it.
Red tape. Red tape.
Yeah, okay.
It's just hard.
Yeah.
So land development, red tape.
Brian, you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I think that it is difficult, but I think it's difficult everywhere.
Mm.
And I think we're less difficult than most places. And so if you looked at it, is it easy to set up, let's say, a daycare? No, it is not. But is it difficult compared to other towns and jurisdictions? No, it is not. So
Just a couple people that wanted to start a restaurant, they ran into a few challenges.
there's definitely challenges. There's no question of that. I don't know. I don't know if it's a weakness when you compare it relatively to other communities. I mean, I guess you could say it is, but when you compare us to other communities, we're not harder than other communities. So as a comparative advantage, I would actually say we're probably easier than most.
Okay.
But and Pat may have some feelings on that too.
Do you want to add on, Paul?
I was going to say is, I think it's a weakness not because of the system, but the fact is that we don't have a lot of some of these things. So for instance, if you want to start a restaurant, there's hardly any restaurants in town. So if you want to create one, it's a change of use to the building and it does all these other things and then you can't afford to. Other cities that already have restaurants, well, you know the turnover rate, you get a restaurant that goes out of business every other year. So you want to open a restaurant, you're like, oh, there's a restaurant spot, I can go in and make it happen. So I think it is a weakness here. And I agree with Brian. I don't necessarily think it's because we try to make it hard, but we do lack the opportunities because we kind of don't have that base that other cities may have, even our size.
I'm sure, hold on, before we go, I'm trying to like summarize that and how to reconcile this discussion here.
Maybe something to the effect of like lack of existing restaurants, lack of existing commercial vacancies.
Venue.
Okay.
Lack of existing commercial. I heard something.
I would say venue.
Venues.
Lack of venues. Okay.
Lack of existing venues.
Mhm.
Okay.
And the issue with the red tape and the codes and the restrictions that we have to do to do anything here, whether it's restaurant or a new building or retail, is that it just takes more time, which adds more cost, which makes it less affordable in the end product, whether it's a house or a business that you're leasing to a tenant, just makes it less affordable because it takes more time and there's more studies. And so anyway, that's part of the red tape. I do agree that it's simpler here than in Portland, but it is a small town, right? And we have a small town feel, and you don't get the rents that Portland does, and so there is definitely some red tape. So I think it is a weakness, but it is better than other places.
Just say relative. I feel like we use that term on the other sheet as well.
Kim?
Yeah, so I've got a couple listed here, but I'll throw the first two out. I would say in our time that we've lived here, we have observed the like housing affordability declining for folks. So that I think can become a concern. And then kind of going back to the comment about the community activities, we do have our strengths, absolutely. But I think it's the lack of a community center, which has really forced us to think creatively and non-traditionally about how we offer community events and draw them together, and just don't have as many activities for kids. And I think that came up a lot during the community conversation, was called out from the town hall meeting as well. It's May and I have conversations with a lot of parents saying, what are you going to do with your kids for summer? And everyone says, I have no idea. And we're in the same boat.
Yeah. No youth activities or outlets.
Tyler?
On that same note too, there's been comment quite a bit lately about trying to figure out how to say this, but basically the tie to the school and not having anything independent to the school. I think it was you, Christine, that said that when you had kids in school, you felt more connected to the community. And so I think the lack of the community center and other engaging activities away from the school district is a weakness that we have. And one of the things that I want to work on with the city as part of my city councilor position is trying to basically separate our branding, our identity from the school district as well, and not tie. So we need to distance ourselves from that entity and not try to consolidate all into one, in lack of a better term. That's my opinion anyway.
So just that reliance on the school district to fill in those gaps. So
yeah, I mean, it's not just a rely. I mean, if you think about it, we rely on them for sports, for their land to, for the kids to play sports on. We rely on them for, I don't know why the thought just there's a lot of connection to the school district. I've lost my train of thought on all the different things, but there's a lot of connection to the school district.
Well, I mean, look at the number one thing that was the first thing that was brought up, schools. So that's why people come to Scappoose. In my community conversations, that's what people say. And and again, back to the meeting place, the rec center. I mean, we don't have anything. We don't have restaurants where we can go and be adults or families. We just don't have those kinds.
I'm just curious because I want to flush this out a little bit. What does the reliance on school districts do for the city that the city wishes they didn't have or didn't have to deal with, or like what is it about having this reliance that is not ideal?
Well, I think so. This Tyler, I think that what Christine said early on, we started this planning committee was one piece of it. That when people have kids in school, they're engaged in those school activities, and they have more social activity because of that. The parents do. The other thing is too is I hear a lot about the whole Indian thing, and somebody told me that we were racist the other day. We get complaints from city council about the Indian theme, and that for me, I want to get away from the city having any branding to do with that, just to avoid that whole conflict and the perception that it brings. I know there's a lot of pride with that, and there's a different narrative. There's two different. There's a narrative that kind of explains it all, but still, it's to me people not knowing that and looking at Scappoose see it in a different light, if that makes sense. And to me, it's an avoidable conflict that we don't need. And I don't know really how.
Yeah. No, that's good. I put it small just to keep track of the conversation, but yeah, I understand perception branding. That's piece of it, but okay.
There's a lot of pieces there.
Yes, I can totally, yeah, I can imagine.
I think Christine nailed it. If you don't have kids, it's really hard to feel part of the community. I mean, my wife and I don't have kids, so we volunteer like as much as possible. My wife's on the track coach. I want to be coaching JV football. I do every thing I can do here. But with we lack that. And then secondarily, what Christine said is we don't have a town center. We don't really have like a quaint downtown. We have Fred Meyer, which is great. Don't get me wrong. But we can't go walk down and go to a pub or whatever or somewhere and as an adult or even as a family. And it's kind of like a town this size should have that. I think that'd be a central meeting point, and we just don't have that.
So maybe lack of town center,
Shopping opportunities.
like
Yeah,
lack
like-
of a walkable downtown.
Yeah,
we
or
have
like
it
a
here
plaza
a
or
little
some
bit,
sort of like
yeah.
central,
Yeah.
point central.
Most old towns have a town our age has a main street.
Mhm.
We don't because it's the highway, and we also had 2 fires in the 30s, knocked everything out. So we lost that kind of quaint downtown feel that we did have.
Yeah.
You might say a highway separating the town, that is a
Huge.
huge issue.
And railroad.
Train.
And railroad, yeah.
Yeah, all very real barriers. Okay.
Difficulty finding childcare.
This is something I hear everywhere.
You know what? I disagree.
I disagree too. I mean,
We've never had a problem finding childcare. I have 6 kids. There's no free childcare. There's no cheap childcare, but there is childcare and there's availability. The Lutheran Church in town has a very good daycare program, and although there may be a waiting time sometimes, they've been expanding. I know they're currently expanding again in the process, and I've never had it felt like if you wanted to say affordable childcare, you could use that word, but it's not that expensive again compared to what the market says it would be. If new childcare was created, they would charge as much as the Lutheran Church charges. And there's other places too. The Adventists do it. There's people doing it out of their homes. There are childcare. I mean, I just don't feel like we have a shortage. I think it's not cheap. That's the market for that service.
Must be perceived because when I was on city council, we heard that as well. You're still hearing it on city council. Must be perceived lack of daycare.
It's now there's a specific niche that's very difficult. Very small babies is a difficult one because the state law and code, not cities, this is not the city's fault, is very specific on how you have to do that. And that makes it much more arduous to set up one and to maintain it and man it and all the rest of it. But for non-babies, there's really not a problem. The only issue you could legitimately say there's a problem for daycare for babies.
Yeah.
Or perhaps seasonally. I mean, I imagine the demand swells over summer, and I'm not sure what Grace Lutheran's ability is to absorb all those kids who need care
Michelle, isn't there the
during
school
summer
program,
months.
the up to 7th grade?
Christine, can you make sure and just talk close?
I think you cut that a couple years ago.
Was it COVID?
It was the preschool, was preschool paradise or something at the high school?
No, I'm
Preschool palace.
there was a summer program that that Mary ran forever.
It was a more of a drop-in by
Mass
nature.
ran.
Yeah, like my kids would walk there, play basketball a couple hours, walk home, but it really wasn't kind of like comprehensive care during the day. So anyway, I'm just saying that may be where, you know, this underscored need is coming from, kind of what's lacking in the summer.
Any other weakness? Joe, get Jeff.
I'd say lack of living wage jobs.
Right.
Lack of public transportation.
Okay.
Increased traffic. It's not a problem yet, but it's heading that way.
Sorry, what was that?
Increased road traffic, Highway 30.
That can be a threat rather than a weakness.
It can be both. You can write it again. Yep.
We are not on a viable commercial corridor. And by that, I mean that we are not on the 5 or the 205. I own a business in Portland. We've looked to move it out here many times. Just the cost of loan of trying to get your goods, even the extra 20 some miles from Portland, is outrageous. You have a container coming in or something. And it's just getting worse every single day. There are many, many opportunities in other towns that have commercial land that are on these corridors, and we are not on these corridors, and that is a weakness.
I'd say a weakness is a little bit of what Tyler was saying, but lack of a turf athletic field for the city, in the city. The people that the youth can play on year round.
I think funding is another issue. It's kind of the root cause of a lot of these things. You know, like the community center, I think we'd probably have one if we had the money to be able to build one. Same with the athletic facilities that aren't the school district. You know, if we had the funding to be able to do these things, then those things would probably not be on this list. I think funding is the base of all of these different issues. Well, maybe not all of them, but a lot of these issues.
Would you say that basically come from property taxes?
So I don't know the answer to that because when you look at similar sized cities in other areas, it seems like to me, I wonder why they have some of the things or how they have some of those things. So I don't know where we'll call it a disconnect is there. Maybe it is taxes. I'm not sure. I haven't dove into that, but it just, I mean, something seems a little off.
I just understood from my years working on economic development that because we have such lower multifamily housing and our per median income, I say that, so high that we can't get grants, that kind of stuff.
Also, another problem we have is that for tax revenue to pay for amenities is that most cities lose money on every house. They make money off commercial and industrial. We have very little industrial and we have more commercial than we used to, but we're still definitely not a commercial teeming center. So you have to kind of look at your commercial and your industrial as your cash cow. And then the residential, you're just kind of treading water and hoping not to lose too much. And, you know, we had Steinfeld's way back, but we don't have large industrial employers in this town paying significant taxes.
Should I add that? Maybe large industry, large scale industry?
Yeah, I wouldn't use the word industrial, but
Yeah.
large, how about large employers or large employment?
Commercial taxation is what you're saying is where where the revenues come from.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you look at a model of how cities pay their bills, they don't make money off apartments or houses because the services they require consume as much as they pay or more. They make money off commercial and industrial because those are the areas where they actually make a profit. The taxes they receive exceed the services they have to provide.
Yes.
And that's not unique to Scappoose. That's pretty much anywhere.
With that though, we also lack ancillary services to these commercial and industrial businesses. So for instance, if you're a small factory and you need a welder ASAP, it's extremely difficult if you don't have that base here. Or if you need someone that knows how to sew or whatever, you don't have that. It's kind of like a chicken or an egg type thing. Like we don't have it, but then we also don't have the services to support it. Until we get that one large company to come in and maybe crack the egg a little bit, but it is a downfall. So for instance, if you want to be a commercial operation and every time you need service, you have to go into Portland or Vancouver and people come out, it's that much more expensive or your downtime is that much longer. So I don't know how to.
Yeah, like
More like a labor pool issue.
diversity of,
Labor though, it's also
Talented.
it's an ancillary service. So
yeah.
like commercial welder that's really good at whatever is not going to be ready to go here.
It's like availability of assets. Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, or I mean, diversity of businesses too. I mean, a welder is a business, a service, and yeah, just okay.
I don't know how to say that properly, but
We've talked about this in our economic committee in the past, and I forget the exact phrasing, you might have it better than me, but it's basically clustering of some sort, is that when you have clustering of businesses, it creates an environment where if you're a technology, that's why you see technology businesses clustered in Hillsborough, because there's many of them there. So a lot of the same services and suppliers and labor pool is the same for all of them. I don't know how you want to put it on that board, but
You're talking about lack of agglomerative economies if you're talking to an economist. And so that's both about the goods. So do you have the widgets in town that you need, or can you get them very easily? But then also about the services. So the employees who might go from one business and work at your other business, or the people who may provide services, business to business services.
Beth, are you saying conglomerate or
agglomerative?
Agglomerate, yes, that's what I thought, which is the opposite of conglomerate.
Yes, agglomerative economies.
Learned a new word
You guys have a really interesting opportunity in the OMEC around opportunities to develop some of that I'm hoping we'll dive into more in a different part of the study.
That said, I mean, just residentially, getting work done on your home is challenging because local contractors are crazy busy, and Portland, once you tell them you're in Scappoose, nobody's coming.
Is it a weakness for Scappoose or is that across the board? I wonder though.
I mean, I think, yeah.
I think we're getting into a lot of issues that plague small communities. I don't think these are specific to Scappoose, but what I'm starting to hear is a lot of things that, for me, I think are just small community problems.
Yeah, well, which
that's what
I agree, which still affects Scappoose.
Do we have any other weaknesses before we move on to?
Christine, I was waiting for you to say this one. No hotel.
Oh, yeah. So close. So
I wanted you to talk about it, but you just wouldn't.
I can't always have light.
Put it for you.
Nancy.
Don't say that. We're so close. Take that no off.
Well, then we can add it at the, yeah.
I'm working really hard.
Almost a hotel.
Go ahead, Nancy.
Lack of a hospital.
Okay. So I also heard on the strength that we have access to medical services.
You can have your broken leg diagnosed, but they can't fix it.
Okay.
We do have industrial medicine now, finally, which we didn't have for years.
Industrial medicine?
Yeah.
Oh.
Industrial medicine, when I was in my chemical company days, we had two things we required before we'd set up operation in any town. We had to have industrial medicine available, and we had to have a hotel that we could put somebody in that wasn't a dive. If the town didn't have that, we would not locate, because without those two services, we could not function.
Can you explain industrial medicine?
Industrial medicine has a couple different components. Part of it is things like drug testing and that kind of thing. There's an accident. You want somebody to be drug tested immediately, not have to drive to Portland. You want it done now. But it's also issues around workers' comp. You don't want to lose a lot of man hours by having people having to go long distances to deal with physical therapy or just seeing a doctor or what have you. And we have plenty of industrial medicine opportunities in the immediate area now, which we didn't used to have. So that's been something that's happened positive in the last 10 years.
Great.
Yeah, our athletic amenities are on the weaker side. Is that part of the facilities altogether?
Yeah.
But that also goes to tourism. So for instance, we had 6 baseball, softball fields. We'd be getting tournaments. We'd be getting people to stay in hotels, all that other stuff. So that kind of goes.
Opportunity.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
All right, so last call on weaknesses.
Eat it up.
Great.
Going.
You want to do opportunities or threats next? Opportunities?
Let's do opportunities, because I feel
Okay.
like we just heard one.
Great.
Okay. All right, to get the juices flowing here, what opportunities are open to the community? What trends could the city take advantage of? How can the city turn strengths into opportunities? Somebody thinking back. I kind of wish I could have you all see what you wrote. Yeah, it is kind of nice as we think about opportunities to be like, what did we say for strengths? And just make those connections. But
Maybe we don't look at it first and we say what our opportunities are.
Yeah.
And we can look back at the list if we need some
sounds great.
extra brain power.
Sounds good.
You want to go, Tyler?
So for right now, I think we have commercial land availability.
Industrial land.
Yeah, industrial, thank you.
Both.
I'm specifically thinking about by the airport.
Availability of employment land. Great.
Jeff?
People fleeing Portland.
Regional migration.
Migration.
In migration. Okay.
I think there's an opportunity with the middle school. If the school's building or a new middle school someplace, the middle school property being somehow a public entity, city hall, there could be a community center there. There could be the town center could start there.
Minimums could start there.
Extra staff
Yeah.
area for the city. Even
So
a hotel.
maybe like potential reuse of middle school facility. Okay.
Repurpose.
Great.
Mick.
Yeah, should we unpack that a little bit. I feel like Andrew had all sorts of things that he was referring to.
He's here. He just
Oh.
can't talk.
Kimmy can't tell.
I guess, is there anything we want to say about OMIC, or at least put up on the board?
I think that, I mean, for me, I've been here for 18 years, and when I found out about OMIC, it's like, this is exactly what this town needs. It's going to bring education, it's going to bring manufacturing. It puts us on the map, not only for Scappoose, but for the state, for the nation. I mean, it's incredible.
Andrew, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I think we talked a little bit about clustering. You know, we combine the workforce training, the research and development, access to the airport, and the industrial land. You know, I think the coordination of those resources presents a tremendous opportunity. And then I can speak maybe separately to PCC. Certainly, PCC is part of that, developing a skilled workforce that's aligned with the industries and needs of this community. But I think there are other resources that PCC brings, you know, providing pathways from those schools into other post-secondary education, community education. And we talked a little bit about opportunities for young people, thinking about the resources connected to an OMIC related facility like a fab lab or a makerspace to help companies and small businesses innovate, help them bring their ideas to life. So I think there's a lot of creative opportunity around OMIC, connected mainly to manufacturing, but I think perhaps even a bit beyond.
Can I put that one as OMIC slash PCC or OMIC and PCC?
For innovative facilities.
Let's do
Yeah,
Pat
and
and then NJ. Okay, go ahead, Andrew, continue.
Yeah, I'm sorry, and I know Craig isn't able to speak tonight with the microphone issue, but you know, I think it's worth noting that the technology at OMIC R&D is world class, and so that is something that virtually very few, if any, communities across the country have access to that type of technology. So bringing interest from frankly around the world to Scappoose is an opportunity.
Pat?
The airport. Most of the airports in this region are already at capacity, and we have a lot of room for growth out there.
Growth of the airport itself, or growth opportunity around the airport?
Airport itself.
Great.
NJ?
Kim?
Yeah, so I think we have some really nice park development opportunities. We've got Chapman Landing and Vista Park, which will bring something entirely unique. And then kind of tie that not just to recreational opportunity for the residents, but potentially recreational tourism. And someone spoke to people wanting to escape Portland. Sometimes they need to escape for just a day. And so hopefully we can draw folks in to just come recreate for a day.
I think that's happening just a bit further south of Scappoose right now.
Is there anybody else in line before I go? Okay, so to piggyback on what Kim just said too, I think that we have quite a bit of land inventory that's not developable because of wetlands issues and just similar types of protections too that allows us to have green spaces and potentially more parks too. I see that as an opportunity.
Adding on to that, there's an opportunity with a continuous trails from parks to parks to the CZ trail and around Scappoose.
And I would just add potentially all the way to Tillamook, right? Because it's going to go Scappoose to Vernonia. It already goes Vernonia to Banks. And I think there's some discussion of getting federal funding for connecting Tillamook's to Banks, which would be just phenomenal.
How many miles will that be, Kim?
too much to bike in one day.
Yeah, Banks, Vernonia. Excellent.
I would also connect that to tourism too, because I see that as a focus on tourism right there with all of the trails interconnecting and the potential of it going to Tillamook too. I mean, you could really market that and bring tourism to Scappoose with that.
Yeah. I think a fun example of that is the city of Mosier out by Hood River just had a plan to develop a little kind of mobility hub to connect all of, because it's the end of like a bike trail out there. And they're really trying to kind of capture the fact that they've finally connected to Mosier and they have this very cool mobility hub that they're building. Neat ideas.
Brian?
Yeah, one more location to Portland. That's an opportunity, I think. But it's everything. It's
everything.
it's everything.
Sometimes good, sometimes bad. And in this version, what does this mean?
Means 25 minutes to downtown Portland in non-rush hour traffic. It means, although you're 100% right that we're not on the main corridor of I-5 or 205, we're still in a stronger position than towns like Rainier or Alaska 9.
I think another opportunity is putting this plan together and being able to capitalize on, you know, what does the city want to see in 50 years? Towns our size, and frankly, most towns don't do 50-year plans. So I think this is a huge opportunity for the city to look out that far and plan for that.
Forward thinking, kind
Forward
of
thinking.
planning capacity. City.
Shaping the future.
Mhm.
Any other thoughts on this? Ideas? NJ?
Andrew?
Yeah, I know Paul Vogel's not with us tonight, but new small business development center in Columbia County, bringing small business development technical support to communities in Scappoose.
Is that a program?
Yeah, it's a resource for small businesses through the SBA, particularly through the state of Oregon. And Columbia County, as of pretty recently, has its own SBDC here now. So that's a real resource.
Great.
All right, last call. Beth?
I mostly want to mention that we're going to pick up on an awful lot of this as we talk about the economic opportunities analysis. This gets me ahead. So thank you guys for being smart.
One more opportunity, which is a lot of these are great ideas, and summation would be is we've never really tried to market our town and brand our town, and then create a visit scappoose.com or .org, whatever, to try to get either businesses or visitors day trip or whatever, or hopefully overnight when the hotel comes. But it's an opportunity, so you can kind of see all these things, but we've yet to even come to the next level, which is, okay, what do we do with these opportunities? And since we haven't tried it yet, there's a lot of opportunity there for us to do it.
It's an opportunity to look at the opportunity list.
Would you think about it, like we're talking about all these things, like, boy, it'd be great if people knew that.
That makes me think of the going back. I guess I'm backing up here, but one of our weaknesses is a lack of media. I mean, even our little radio station doesn't reach the entire county. We get no television whatsoever. And so everything ends up on Facebook. good, bad, and indifferent. And in my estimation, we need to be investing in our little local radio station. That is the way we could keep in touch better. And it's here. It's already up. It's already running. It wouldn't take that much.
Nancy, I don't even listen to the radio.
Well,
Anise, can you look at the, while she's
Yeah.
continuing, can you just look at the strengths and weaknesses to see if there's anything else we could put in opportunity? And then Nancy, can you continue with that thought, please?
yeah, it's just really that we don't have, like we were talking, we don't have a community center. We also don't have a community base for getting information. You know, our newspapers only come out once a week. But here we have a radio station and it's not being taken advantage of. And one of the reasons is it doesn't reach the entire county, and it needs financial help to support us. In the case of an emergency, we're not going to have television. We've never had television, but we have radio, but we won't even be able to use it in the case of an emergency. We really need to be putting some money in our radio station, in my humble opinion.
I put
Or
that
Kim?
as a weakness.
Okay, okay, perfect. Kim?
Yeah, just a last thought on the marketing and branding discussion. I think the Scappoose Bay Watershed Council and their native plant sale is a great visibility opportunity. When I was doing the community conversations, at least half the folks say, oh, no, I'm not from Scappoose. This is the one time a year I come to Scappoose. So just, partnering with community agencies like that maybe are doing things that attract people in to help give the community a little more visibility is an opportunity.
Great.
Last call opportunities.
I took a quick look at the strengths here and I feel like we captured all of the weaknesses. We talked about OMAC, we saw, lack of community center. We talked about the reuse or repurpose of the middle school. Yeah. Okay. We're good.
All right, the last one is threats. Just to recap threats, what threats could harm the community? What are other communities doing? What threats does the city's weaknesses expose?
I think the river is a threat.
Can you elaborate on that, please?
Flooding. And I have another one, Cascadia.
Lack of some infrastructure. Stormwater system would be one that comes to mind.
A lack of a stormwater system.
Yeah, it really makes building on commercial properties difficult when they're small parcels because you have to find a way to dispose of the water. If you're on Highway 30, you can usually tie into the highway's water disposal system. But if you're not on the highway, it's much more problematic.
Yeah, that can be really big.
I'd say OMEC opening a new plant or a new site in Austin, outside of Austin.
Didn't hear the end of that.
Didn't hear the end.
What was that?
OMEC's building a new site in Austin, outside of Austin, actually, like is here.
They're going to call it Oregon Manufacturing Innovation Center in Austin.
Well, they'll call it something different, but it's
Right.
the same.
It's another thing based off the AMRC.
Yes.
So kind of spreading the goods.
Well, and we don't have technology base here that Austin has. Austin is
Retain, yeah.
I mean, we're doing pretty well with OMIC. They're building their second building. We already have a third building scheduled. It's growing exponentially. I understand that more businesses could also frequent the Austin facility, but we are the Silicon Forest. We do have a lot of technology here.
Well, yeah, I mean, my whole family besides me is technology. And my son actually works in Austin at Samsung. So you have Samsung, Apple, right there in Austin.
In the same town, yeah.
Slow.
I mean, retaining retaining a facility like OMEC might be a threat.
Well,
Making sure that it's viable here in the long term.
It might,
I wish that Craig could speak to this, but OMIC is not necessarily high tech. It's about bringing manufacturing, industrial manufacturing, and the technology associated with that, not just Samsung or Apple, that kind of thing.
Andrew?
Yeah.
Yeah, again, I would, Craig could speak to this better than I, but I do just want to mention that the technology that is here is highly advanced, and they're building an additive manufacturing center as well. So OMIC is growing here in Scappoose. And so, you know, there will be, this technology will expand across the country, but what is happening here in Scappoose, we're growing, and I say we collectively, including the training piece in that larger OMIC initiative. And so I certainly would defer to Craig on the specifics here, but you know, all of our growth is happening currently.
Andrew, would you say that there is, what would be a threat, I guess, for
You know,
OMIC?
it would hard for me to say a threat
Sure.
at this point, considering that the R&D center is investing in an additional building.
Yeah.
And we are coordinating stronger than ever with our economic development partners to talk about how we align these different resources. And the resources that are here to stay. I don't see those leaving. And that's why the investment is happening now.
Unless there's a big Cascadia event
Yeah,
or,
well,
yeah. Okay.
We did have.
NJ?
Jennifer?
I think lack of affordable housing for people in the service industry, people that are working locally, they'll need to commute in to the city to work, and that creates more traffic.
Affordable workforce housing.
I think workforce housing is actually a higher income range than
Service
the
industry.
yeah,
Okay.
and also senior housing.
Paul?
Oh, yeah, I think St. Helens is a threat, especially with their waterfront. I mean, this is, you know, my opinion. I could be wrong. I'd love to hear anybody else's if they disagree. But I mean, we've talked about how it's so hard to get a restaurant in here or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And meanwhile, St. Helens and what they're going to do on that waterfront is going to attract some really great businesses down there, and all that new development, maybe siphoning off some people that may have thought about doing something here. I don't know. Maybe it's an opportunity because we would get some halo effect, but I see it more of a threat.
I would definitely agree with that. I've heard many times throughout my little hotel quest that St. Helens has so much land available to them. And also to your earlier point, they do have so many businesses, so many empty commercial spaces that are open for business. And we just don't have that opportunity. And we don't have land to put, I mean, like, where would we put a restaurant? We just don't have those kinds of pieces.
So I have one that's kind of in line with our subject. I think that the proximity to Portland, Hillsborough, and basically any area that's bigger than us is a threat, because we kind of are the problem. We being the people that live here, because we go to Portland, we go to Hillsborough, we go to St. Helens to go to restaurants, to spend money in those other communities. And until we get people to stay here and spend money, businesses aren't going to come here because it's all about sales. There's no, I wouldn't open a business here when I have the opportunity to open it in, say, St. Helens or Portland or some other area that's going to make me more money for probably the same amount of effort. It just doesn't make sense. So until we can get our people to stay here and spend money locally within our community, Portland, Hillsborough, all those places that are 20 minutes away are going to remain a big obstacle for Scappoose.
I mean, I think that's what Bill has been all of these years.
Exactly. But if it continues to happen though, and we don't I don't know how we do this, but until we get people to spend money here and stay here, then why would any restaurants open up here?
Well, I think the opportunity, sorry, I know we're on threats.
Sorry.
With that said, with OMIC, with the education, with our new apartments, I mean, all of these things, they're coming and there will be more people here. We should, in theory, get services.
That's the offset, and that's one of the, it's going to be the population growth as Capuzzo organically happens that makes it happen in another way. But I think anyway, I mean, will just inherently be additional, restaurant stores, things like that because of the population. But that's, in my opinion, a long ways down the road unless we can figure out another way to accomplish it.
I actually owned a restaurant in town,
Did, and it was really nice.
and it was nice, and I didn't want to do that, but I did it for a while till I sold it. Then I had a couple tenants, and nobody seemed to be able to make it work very well. And it was a good location, not too big. And there was a great comment that I had from an ex-city council member. I was trying to figure out what do people want? They said, well, we want to change the pace. I said, well, what does that mean? He says, I want to leave Scappoose. And so I think what happens, unfortunately, to your point, is a lot of people go to Portland, Hillsborough or Portland to go shopping at Home Depot or a mall or what have you. And then while they're there, they eat. That's what they do on the weekend. And so it's hard keeping our market share here. The answer is population growth, employment growth, and those kinds of things. And it will fix itself. I don't know. Everybody keeps on talking about how we need more restaurants. I don't see how you get more restaurants unless we have customers for those restaurants. So this idea that we can build more restaurants and they will survive, I think is a fallacy. I think we're going to have customers for those restaurants, and then those restaurants will occur. And that's, so I don't know any other way to put it, but thanks.
I've heard we don't have the lunch rush.
The lunch rush
Yeah.
is an interesting one. It's seniors and teachers. Because younger people, for the most part, are commuting into Hillsborough and Portland.
Is there a way to summarize what just transpired in terms of restaurants and?
Portland, Hillsborough,
Okay. I mean, I said,
metro area.
yeah, commercial activity in St. Helens, but then just also the broader metro, just pulling commercial activity away from here.
That's
I think
outflow
a
of your
threat-
activity.
A threat is not building out the jobs in the land that we have. Just
Lack of new jobs.
putting barriers up to companies coming in and anchoring that area and having family wage jobs in the community.
How is our broadband going in this community? I mean, I live out in the country and I know, it's not good.
Gigabyte service,
What?
pretty good. Gigabyte service.
Comparatively, we are way behind. I mean, Montana has fiber out where they don't have power. It's insane. But to answer your question, we are definitely behind. There are areas that have it, but and it makes no sense. I mean, we talk about how close we are to Hillsborough, to Portland. I can't wrap my head around why we don't have more broadband services out here than what we do.
Because we're talking a lot about workforce going into Portland, but at least in a lot of areas that I'm in, so many have moved remote, but they're going to come here if they have the ability to work from home.
Well, I know when OMIC first started, there was a huge internet issue, and I know Comcast did a great amount of work to service them. So I would think that it's here because OMIC is using it.
Yeah, maybe it's not whether or not it's here, but maybe just kind of the breadth of fiber and broadband, and also the quality of fiber and broadband. There's these days varying levels of it.
It's here, just nobody is doing the in between to connect it so that and expand it out Scappoose Journey Highway and all these other corridors off of Highway 30. If you ever have an opportunity to look at the Montana broadband map, it's really impressive. I mean, there's an interactive map and you can pick some of the most remote locations and there's literally, if it's not to the lot, it's a mile, 2 miles away. It's pretty amazing.
I guess that could be infrastructure to growth, threat. Then, Anise, are we going to go through each one of these 4 quadrants and go up on the board and rank them top 3 to 5?
We
Gonna
could
do that tonight?
we could certainly do that. I hadn't planned on it, but if you want to, we could put the posters up and I can make it so that you can actually read everything and people can just take a marker and kind of.
I think it'd be great.
Sure.
Just this.
We do that as a group, or should just we kind of break and everybody get up, grab a marker and do that?
I think we could just break and grab
Perfect.
a marker, and then what's that look like? Do we put, you just rank your top?
I think what we've
2?
done before is just put, kind of hashtags next to, maybe we'll decide how many do you want, like the top 3, the top 5 for each category.
Maybe everyone just does their top 3.
Yeah, top 3
Top
would be good.
3, yeah, and so we'll just do hash and,
I have a bunch of markers here, and then I know there's a bunch of pens too. So.
What about the people?
The people online could chat with NJ. NJ, you can figure out how they can mark their.
Maybe you can bring this phone around.
Perhaps do we want to put a 1, 2, 3 so that she can kind of see?
Perfect. Everyone does 1, 2, 3 on each different category. All right, last call on threats.
Oh, yeah, I have one. Which I think you were just hitting on here, is that our dichotomy of how we work is completely changing. In some ways, we're chasing because we're so far behind everybody else. We're trying to get to where they are. Meanwhile, they're already going the opposite way. No one's building new campuses at Nike, in fact, because no one's going to work there anymore. So looking at the big picture is it could be a real threat that we're trying to do all these things and we're chasing. But it also could be an opportunity that, hey, we don't have empty buildings all over the place like Portland does right now. So what do we do? I mean, do we make this a better place to live and thus more people will work here because we can work remotely? I guess what I'm getting at is like we are in an incredible change period here. We all saw it through COVID. How do we make that an opportunity and not a threat? Because it could turn either way. That make sense?
Yeah, I'm just not sure how we write that down.
I know, but the thing is like I know from just owning our business in Portland that if we want to expand in Portland, it's super easy because there's so many buildings open right now.
Mhm.
That might be temporary, or it might be actually the tip of the iceberg because a lot of companies are now telling them we don't need an office anymore. We're gonna rent once a month a workspace and have a meeting like this.
Mhm.
So it's
Gonna go back home.
maybe they will, but it's a changing economy that you have to. It could be a threat. It could be an opportunity for us. But my point is that we need to be aware of it as we go through a 50-year plan.
Threat is
This is
expanding the wrong direction or expanding with the wrong industry or what would be the rest of it, Paul?
I was hoping you guys could help on that. To be honest.
I think with what we have right now with our industrial land and with OMEC, I mean, Scappoose is open for manufacturing. So in manufacturing, you're not going to work at home. You're going to go in. So I think
Maybe
that
it's like
we might be outside of that.
an unknown changing
There's,
future.
there's also a situation because Portland sucks. I've picked up 2 tenants that were Portland businesses that wanted to move out of Portland. And so although it's a very small market, our commercial market, we've actually benefited from Portland's unlivability.
Well, and I just met with Metro's planning and development person, and I told her about all of our land, and she actually came out last week, and she knows a bunch of industrial companies that want out of Metro, that want out of Multnomah County, and with our proximity to Highway 30, the airport, and the river, pretty hot.
Isn't the threat really planning for an undeliverable result?
That's a good way of saying it. Yeah.
planning for an uncertain future. I mean,
Yeah.
Beth?
You could also
And
say,
after this one, let's start ranking these. We have about 20 minutes left here. So
you could
Beth,
also say over specializing.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chair Kessie, I apologize.
apology accepted. Just joking. All right, so let's roll the.
What I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put 4 pieces of paper over there, and then the rest here. In terms of wall space and not putting stuff on picture frames. Grab the other. There's only one thread.
It's only one thread. That's good.
So let's come back at about 7:50. So take about 8 minutes to put your 1, 2, 3 on each one of these.
I gotta move to the other side of the room. Yes.
Softball team ticker or softball game. I can't hear. I have fun. By the time that fifth one goes through, okay, I've done enough. That's what I've heard. Trying to. Seems wrong up.
No, I didn't anticipate this at all. It is nice. Well, the mayor got involved and the council got involved. So,
That is a real testament.
a testament, it's a testament of how hard I've worked for the last
Yes.
11.5 years.
You are really legendary.
Oh, well,
The business world, for
oh
sure.
my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, community. They're doing different. They do the same.
NAs.
Yes. Okay.
The boards didn't look as good as they sounded when we put them up.
I'm sorry, say
Said
again?
The boards didn't look as good as they sounded when we were putting them.
I know. I agree with you. It's a good, good observation.
It sounded better when we were doing it. I can't help myself. I gotta ask, any movement on the intro?
In the notes that I took, I got more of your words, so it might sound better.
I heard about it. Yeah, I saw that. I talked to Larry. He probably talked to him. But I talked
What was that, Beth?
about this
Somebody was saying that the boards don't look as good as they sounded when they were going up. I was saying that I got more of their words in my notes.
Oh, okay, great.
So let's get back together in about 60 seconds here, about 1 minute. 1 minute warning.
Egos are. You ain't gonna.
I know, I have to.
I know you're young, but one day.
Would you please? I have a meeting.
Next week. I don't even have to come and just make that observation.
Well, I didn't feel like I could just take over, but going.
All right. Anna East, you want to take us away here? Close this discussion. It's okay if people are still voting. We can get going.
Yeah. Okay, how should I close this discussion? I don't have a mental, I haven't fully digested kind of the ranking yet.
And that you don't have to do that.
Okay.
right now. If we want to just go on to the next subject, that's great.
Yeah, let's do that. I guess, yeah, maybe what I'll say then just briefly as a closing first, thank you for just engaging in the exercise. I know it's a pretty simple one, but it actually is really helpful to have these broader conversations and also get just examples of more detailed circumstantial evidence and thoughts and reflections. So super appreciate it. And once again, in terms of what are we doing with all of this information, it is qualitative. The ranking helps us understand priorities. It's not, we're not going to run any statistical tests on it. But what it also does is, as I mentioned earlier, really helps us kind of build that language. So when we're thinking about developing the vision statement for this plan and for this process, really trying to capture what we're hearing here alongside with what we've been hearing through other avenues. So thank you for doing that. I also think this is kind of a great segue and just like keeps us on track in terms of thinking about, what you've learned from the H&A so far, what you're going to be learning through the EOA. Yeah, just like primes the pump a little bit in terms of thinking about these things. So I super appreciate it.
Good, Anna East, thank you.
Yep.
We'll move on. Okay, awesome. Well, thanks everyone too for a great discussion. I mean, it's okay not to agree to each other, but we did it respectfully and everyone listened, and I think it was an awesome discussion tonight. So thank you for that. And people on Zoom, if you're still there, thank you for your engagement and really giving us quality feedback tonight. That was great. And then I thought Anna East did an awesome job leading the meeting. Thank you. I like your energy between 6 and 8 o'clock at night. We appreciate that. We really do. Seriously. Thank you. The next meeting is May 31st, and that's to review the draft residential lands needs analysis. So put that on your calendar. And the meeting after that is July 19th, and that's to review the 50-year plan vision statement. So keep those on your calendar. Upcoming events are on the agenda too. City Council Planning Commission check-in, June 6th. City Council Planning Commission check-in, July 18th. And then the Farmers Market Open House, July 23rd.
These events are related to the 50-year plan.
Yes.
Thank you.
And that is a reminder too, to try to get, Paul brought up a good point. We need to try to get as much feedback on the survey as possible, the community conversation. So thank you for doing 4 or whatever you've been doing so far has been awesome. So thank you for doing that, but please continue to do it with whichever groups you think would be useful. So that's great.
Remember to not only do them, but to also submit your notes. It's great to do them, but if we don't have the notes, we need the notes.
Yeah, 95% is doing it. 5% is finishing it, submitting it. Awesome. Okay. Any further discussion? Great. We'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.
Good night. Thanks.
Any more markers?
Oh, it's very boring. There's always a visitor word.
If it was smelly, I wouldn't get